That's what makes this so fascinating. It begs the question, how in the world does a statement like this even happen? Let's unpack it. Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the part that's most confusing for a lot of people, that word at the end. So first things first, what exactly is a lakh? Well, for anyone not familiar, it's a unit in the Indian numbering system, and it stands for 100,000. So the equation isn't saying 7 minus 3 is 4. No, it's saying 7 minus 3 is 400,000. And that leads us to this impossible statement. The equation is basically claiming that the number 4 is the exact same thing as 400,000. And I think we can all agree, in no universe is that true. So what is going on here? To solve this mystery, we have to put on our detective hats. We need to figure out where a statement like this could possibly come from. Because let's be real, it definitely didn't come from a math textbook. This kind of thing actually follows a pretty familiar pattern online. It usually starts with a politician or some public figure saying something confusing. Then that little soundbite gets clipped, stripped of all its original context, and bam, it's shared everywhere as a huge mistake. Next thing you know, it's a massive meme. And that brings us to the million-dollar question. Or maybe the $4 lakh question. If this wasn't just a simple math error, what was it supposed to mean? What was that crucial context that got lost along the way? All right, this is the moment you've been waiting for. Let's pull back the curtain and find the hidden logic, and I'm using the term logic pretty loosely here, behind this bonkers equation. Here's where the two worlds collide. On the left, you've got simple, clean math. 7 minus 3 equals 4. We all get that. But on the right, you have what we might call bureaucratic math. This is when someone tries to jam two different ideas together. For instance, maybe they started with 7 projects, then they canceled 3 of them, and that action somehow reallocated 4 lakhs in funds. They've just smooshed it all into one nonsensical sentence. Logic actually has a sort of recipe. You start with 2 totally unrelated things, like a number of projects. Then you do a simple operation, like subtraction. And for the grand finale, you stick a completely different unit on the end, like money, and just present it as one logical thought. It's designed to be confusing. And really, it all boils down to this. This was never about an error in arithmetic. It's a communication strategy, where the numbers aren't important for their actual value, but for the story they're supposed to be telling, even if that story makes zero logical sense. But, of course, the internet doesn't really care about the boring, complicated backstory. It sees a gaffe, a funny mistake, and it does what it always does. It turns it into an absolutely brilliant meme. And the way people have adopted it is just hilarious. It became a format to describe our own ridiculous situations, like this one. Ate 7 slices of pizza, ran for 3 minutes. Net result, lost 4 lakh calories. It's the perfect way to capture that feeling of, justifying our choices with some creative logic. Or how about this one, which might feel a little too real for some of us? Attended 7 meetings, did 3 hours of actual work. Net productivity, 4 lakh. It's just a perfect, hilarious jab at corporate culture. And so the phrase 7 minus 3 equals 4 lakh isn't really about the original event anymore. It's evolved. It's now this cultural shorthand, a tool that we can all use to point out fuzzy math or flawed reasoning anywhere we find it. So yeah, it's funny. But this one little equation is actually a fantastic case study. It teaches all of us a really crucial lesson about how we see and process information in this day and age. The lesson here is to keep an eye out for these red flags yourself. When you see numbers being thrown around without any clear context, or when different units, like projects and money, are getting mashed together, and most importantly, if you see a simple summary of a really complex issue that just feels wrong, trust your gut. And this chart really shows why this is so important. Look, public trust in just raw data can be pretty shaky, but see what happens when that same data is given clear, verifiable context? Trust shoots way, way up. Context is absolutely everything. When it's all said and done, the big takeaway is this. Numbers don't always speak for themselves. It's up to us to look beyond the digits on the screen and actually question the story and the logic that's being sold to us. And that's what I want to leave you with. Now that you've seen how 7 minus 3 equals 4 lakh really works, what other simple numbers or stats that you see every single day might not be telling you the whole story? Something to think about. All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to deconstruct the hidden formula for absolutely captivating communication. And we're going to do it by looking at just one simple, powerful observation of a teacher at work. Look, we're all in the same boat, right? We're swimming in a sea of information. Whether you're teaching a class, giving a presentation, or just trying to get your point across at dinner, the real fight isn't about what you say. It's about getting people to actually hear it. So, how do the best communicators manage to cut through all that noise? Well, you know what? The answer we're looking for isn't buried in some dense academic study. Nope. It comes from a really simple, candid observation of a teacher, totally in their element. We're going to use this one little snapshot to basically reverse engineer a masterclass on engagement. So, this is it. This is our source material. It's a comment we found online, and it says, "The teacher is explaining a little fast, the camera has a slight handheld feel, dynamic energy." Then it gets specific. A close-up of the whiteboard, 3 lakhs highlighted in orange with a calculation animation. Now, I know it might not look like much, but hidden inside these few words are 3 incredibly powerful principles for grabbing and holding attention. Let's break them down. Okay, first up, pace. The observation kicks off with the teacher explaining things toward a fast. That just means a little bit fast. Let's dig into why that small detail is such a game changer. Now, this isn't about just rushing through your material so no one understands you. Not at all. A slightly faster pace does something fascinating to our brains. It actually closes the window for our minds to wander off. It kind of forces you to lean in and really focus, creating this unspoken agreement that, hey, what's being said right now is important. And think about it, it's a signal of efficiency. A faster pace basically says, I know your time is valuable and I am not going to waste a second of it. It respects the audience enough to believe they can keep up, and in turn, that makes them feel more invested in what you're actually saying. All right, let's move on to that second piece, the slight handheld feel and the dynamic energy that comes with it. This is all about the vibe, the whole feeling of the presentation. The contrast here is what's really interesting. You know that perfectly still, locked down camera on a tripod? It feels formal, it feels safe, but it also feels a little distant. But the moment you introduce even a tiny bit of handheld movement, the whole experience feels more immediate, more authentic. It's the difference between watching a pre-recorded lecture and feeling like you are literally in the room with the person speaking. And that's the real magic here. That dynamic energy isn't a mistake, it's a strategic tool. It completely breaks down the wall between the speaker and the viewer. It turns a one-way speech into something that feels like a two-way conversation, and it injects this sense of life and unpredictability that is just naturally engaging. Okay, and finally, let's look at how the most important piece of information gets delivered. This is where the visual storytelling really takes center stage. Remember how our little note mentioned a close-up on the whiteboard, a calculation animation, and a highlighted number? That was no accident. It's a very deliberate 3-step process. The close-up gets rid of all distractions. The animation shows you how we got there. It shows the work. And then the highlight delivers the final punchline, the big payoff. They're not just giving you an answer, are they? They are guiding your eyes and your mind on this short but very intentional journey. And that process makes the final number feel earned. It makes it way more memorable. And boom, there it is, the final moment, the number 3 lakh, glowing in this vibrant orange. All the pace, all the dynamic energy, it was all leading to this single point. That color makes it the undeniable hero of the screen. You can't look away, and you absolutely cannot miss its importance. This is the destination. So let's put it all together now. We've got pace, we've got energy, and we've got sharp visual focus. How do they all combine to create something truly powerful? Because this is the most important part. These techniques are not working in isolation. The fast pace creates the need for your focus. The dynamic energy builds that personal connection, and the visual highlight gives you that crystal clear takeaway. They're all part of one seamless, cohesive system. This table just lays it all out, nice and clean. The Thoda fast pacing creates urgency and forces you to focus. The handheld dynamic style builds that sense of immediacy, of being right there. And the close-up, highlight, animation combo provides total clarity and massive impact. It's efficient, it's engaging, and it is incredibly effective. Which brings us to the big takeaway. Crafting a message that really sticks is like being a choreographer. It's about consciously managing the pace, the energy, and the visual focus to lead your audience right where you want them to go. It's about making your point completely impossible to ignore. So, as we wrap this up, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. The next time you have to communicate something important, in a presentation, an email, whatever, what is your 3 lock? What is that one single thing you need to make pop? And how are you going to build the pace and energy to lead everyone right to it?